You know, it's remarkable how often we underestimate what's hidden beneath the surface, both in nations and in individuals. Think about this for a moment. The world goes about its business, assuming it understands the balance of power, who is strong and who is weak, who is capable and who is incapable. And then suddenly something comes to light, something unexpected, something long kept beneath the surface, a revelation that forces everyone to reorient their assumptions. India's nuclear capacity is one example of this phenomenon, but it isn't merely about international politics, energy, or military strength. It's a symbol of something deeper, the untapped potential that exists within every human being. Most of you sitting here carry with you reservoirs of power you've never accessed. That's not an exaggeration. It's the simple truth. And the tragedy is that you might live your entire life without realizing it, without testing it, without allowing it to manifest. You might convince yourself you know your limits, but you don't. Not really, because your limits are far beyond what you've currently reached. Most people are walking around running on 10% of what they could actually be. It's like this: imagine an enormous dam holding back a river, thousands of tons of water pressing silently against concrete. For years, nothing seems to happen. You walk past it every day, it looks inert, almost invisible. But all that pressure is accumulating, silently, patiently, waiting for release. That's what hidden potential looks like. It doesn't always advertise itself. It doesn't boast or wave flags. It waits until it's necessary, until the moment demands it. The same goes for you. People will dismiss you. They'll say you're average, ordinary, unremarkable. And you might even agree with them. You tell yourself, well, I'm just this kind of person. This is what I do. This is all I am. But that's the greatest self-deception, because you don't actually know what you are until you've been tested, until you've been stretched to the point where comfort is no longer an option. You don't know how strong you are until strength is your only choice. Nations understand this. India, for decades, was seen as a struggling country, burdened with poverty, political instability, energy shortages. Many thought of it as incapable of wielding real influence, but hidden beneath the surface was a power, both intellectual and technological, that the world hadn't fully accounted for. And when it emerged, when it revealed itself, the entire landscape shifted. That's exactly what happens with people. No one expects much from you until the day you reveal what's been developing in the shadows. You see, the reason so many people remain stuck is that they've been trained to avoid the very experiences that would reveal their hidden strength. They choose safety, they choose comfort, they avoid risk. And so their lives remain small. Their true capacity never makes itself known because they never give it the opportunity to emerge. But the cost of that avoidance is staggering. You trade your greatness for mediocrity, your potential for security, your soul for convenience. Let me tell you something: the person you are right now is not the person you could be. That gap between who you are and who you could be, that's the hidden nuclear power within you. That's the force the world doesn't see. And your responsibility, if you take it seriously, is to reveal it, to discover it, to test yourself against the weight of the world and find out what you're actually made of. Now, people often ask me, how do I do that? How do I find that hidden power? And the answer is, you pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. You stop running away from the challenges that frighten you, and you face them head on. You decide that the fear is no longer going to dictate the boundaries of your life. You step into responsibility even when it terrifies you. You take on burdens that stretch you beyond your current abilities. That's how potential reveals itself. It's the same principle that allowed nations to rise. India didn't become powerful by accident. It became powerful because it embraced the responsibility of development, invested in knowledge, science, discipline, and refused to remain defined by the limitations of its past. That's not just geopolitics, that's a life lesson, and it applies to you directly. Maybe you're stuck in a job you hate. Maybe you've convinced yourself you'll never achieve anything greater than what you already have. Maybe you tell yourself you're not intelligent enough, not disciplined enough, not courageous enough. But those are lies you tell to protect yourself from the pain of failure. And what's worse, you start to believe them. But what if you stopped listening to that inner critic? What if you acted as though you had untapped reserves of strength, intelligence, and creativity? Because you do. Every time you set a higher standard for yourself, Every time you decide to take on a responsibility you don't feel ready for, every time you push beyond what feels comfortable, you're chipping away at that dam. You're letting out the hidden force. And at first, it might just be a trickle, but eventually it becomes a flood. And when that happens, everything in your life changes. You're no longer the person others underestimated. You're no longer the person you underestimated. You're a force that can't be ignored. But let me be clear, this isn't easy. It's painful. It requires sacrifice. It requires giving up who you are for who you could become. And that's terrifying, but it's also the only path worth walking. Because the alternative, the safe, comfortable, easy path, leads nowhere. It leads to stagnation, bitterness, resentment, despair. You don't want that. No one wants that. Think about the people you admire most. Think about the stories that inspire you. Are they stories of comfort and ease? No. They are stories of struggle, of hidden potential revealed under immense pressure. They're stories of ordinary individuals who discovered they were extraordinary, not because they wanted to be, but because the circumstances demanded it. That's greatness. And it's available to you if you're willing to bear the burden. So when you look at yourself, stop seeing only what's visible today. Start seeing what's possible tomorrow. Stop defining yourself by your current limitations and start defining yourself by the future you could create. Remember, the world didn't expect India's hidden power, and the world doesn't expect yours either. But when it emerges, when you decide to bring it forth, it will shock everyone, including yourself. And so the challenge is simple. Though not easy, stop living as though you're powerless. Stop telling yourself you're ordinary. Stop hiding from the very trials that could unlock your strength. Step into responsibility. Step into challenge. Step into the unknown. And watch as the hidden power within you makes itself visible. Because the truth is this: your potential is far greater than your fear. And it's time you proved it. Discipline. That's a word people don't like to hear anymore. It sounds old-fashioned, harsh, restrictive. People today want freedom without responsibility, success without structure, achievement without sacrifice. But here's the paradox, the very thing we resist. Discipline is the foundation of every kind of freedom worth having. Without it, you collapse into chaos. And chaos doesn't make you free. It enslaves you. Think about nations. They don't just stumble into greatness. They don't wake up one morning with functioning institutions, advanced technology, and stable prosperity. Those things are built brick by brick, habit by habit, law by law, sacrifice by sacrifice. That is discipline expressed on the scale of millions. If a nation cannot discipline itself, cannot establish order, rules, and structures, it decays into corruption, poverty, and instability. And once that happens, its power evaporates. It's no different for a person. A person without discipline is like a city with broken walls, vulnerable to every temptation, every weakness, every external pressure. If you can't say no to yourself, you'll never be able to say yes to what really matters. You'll drift, you'll scatter your energy, you'll pursue distractions instead of purpose. And in the end, you'll wonder why your life feels empty. So discipline is not the enemy of freedom. It's the precondition for freedom. If you can't control yourself, someone else will. If you can't master your impulses, they'll master you. If you can't structure your time will vanish into nothing. That's why discipline isn't optional. It's essential. Now, some people will argue, well, I want to be creative, spontaneous, authentic. Discipline will crush that. No, that's a shallow misunderstanding. Discipline doesn't kill creativity, it enables it. Look at the greatest artists, scientists, thinkers. Do you think they produced masterpieces by accident, by waiting for inspiration? No, they built routines. They worked at their craft every single day, often for decades, before the brilliance emerged. Discipline is what allowed their creativity to take form instead of dissolving into chaos. Nations understand this too. Look again at India's rise. For years, it faced shortages, instability, and dependence. But it invested in science, in education, in long-term planning. It cultivated the discipline to build rather than merely consume, to sacrifice today for tomorrow. That's why it could suddenly shock the world. The same principle applies to you. The discipline you practice today sets the stage for the power you'll reveal tomorrow. And let's be honest here, discipline is painful. It's uncomfortable. It means saying no when every fiber of your being wants to say yes. It means getting up when you'd rather stay in bed, working when you'd rather relax, confronting the truth when you'd rather hide. But here's the thing, pain is unavoidable. You can choose the pain of discipline, or you can choose the pain of regret. One pain builds you, the other destroys you. I've seen so many people who think discipline is unnecessary. They imagine that somehow life will arrange itself in their favor if they just wait long enough. But life doesn't work that way. If you don't impose order on your existence, chaos will impose itself on you. And the longer you avoid discipline, the heavier the cost becomes. That's true for individuals, and it's true for civilizations. So what does discipline look like? It's simple, though not easy. It looks like cleaning your room when you'd rather let it slide. It looks like finishing the work before you go out with friends. It looks like telling the truth when a lie would be easier. It looks like showing up consistently, whether you feel like it or not. It's the daily act of aligning yourself with order instead of drifting into disorder. And over time, those small acts of discipline accumulate into something extraordinary. Just as small acts of corruption accumulate into collapse, small acts of discipline accumulate into strength. People may not notice it at first, just like they didn't notice India's long investment in technology and knowledge. But eventually it becomes undeniable. Suddenly, there's a strength where before there was only fragility. Suddenly, there's influence where before there was irrelevance. That's the power of discipline manifesting itself. Some of you in this room are waiting for motivation. You think, if only I felt more inspired, I'd change my life. But that's backwards. Motivation follows action, not the other way around. You don't wait to feel disciplined. You practice discipline, and the feeling comes later. If you rely on moods and emotions to guide you, you'll always be a slave to circumstance. If you build discipline, you rise above circumstance. And don't underestimate how rare this is. Most people never master themselves. They drift from pleasure to pleasure, excuse to excuse, blaming everything but their own choices. But a person who learns discipline becomes unshakable. They can face pressure, temptation, and difficulty without collapsing because they've built a structure within themselves that holds. That kind of person commands respect. That kind of person earns influence. It's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. You'll fail. You'll stumble. You'll give in to weakness sometimes. But every time you return to discipline, every time you choose order over chaos, you're building a foundation that cannot be taken from you. That foundation will carry you when everything else crumbles. And here's something crucial: discipline is contagious. When you embody it, people around you feel it. They're inspired by it. Families, communities, even nations rise when enough individuals commit to discipline. It spreads outward, multiplying its effect. That's why your personal discipline isn't just about you. It's about everyone connected to you. Your strength becomes their strength. Your order becomes their stability. So ask yourself, where in your life are you avoiding discipline? Where are you choosing comfort over growth, distraction over focus, weakness over strength? Because those are the areas where you're sabotaging your future. And don't deceive yourself by thinking those little choices don't matter. They matter more than you can imagine. The truth is, discipline is the greatest gift you can give yourself. It shapes your character, your competence, your destiny. Without it, nothing you build will last. With it, everything you build has the chance to endure. It's the difference between living as a victim of chaos and living as an architect of order. Remember, this strength is not an accident. Success is not luck. Influence is not coincidence. They are all the byproducts of discipline, consistently practiced over time. So, if you want to discover your hidden potential, if you want to shock yourself in the world with what you're capable of, start with discipline. Embrace it even when it's painful, even when it feels impossible. Because that's the price of freedom. That's the path to strength. And in the end, it's the only way forward. Discipline doesn't limit you. Discipline makes you unstoppable. Responsibility, that word has weight to it. It makes people flinch. Because deep down, we all know what it demands from us. It isn't glamorous. It isn't easy. But it's the very thing that transforms both nations and individuals. Without responsibility, there is no power. Without it, there is no respect. Responsibility is the bridge between potential and influence. Look at what happens on a national scale. For decades, India was viewed primarily through the lens of its struggles, poverty, shortages, dependency. It was a country that the world did not take seriously in terms of power and influence. But something changed when it began to shoulder greater responsibility for its future. When it decided not to remain dependent, not to remain at the mercy of outside forces, but instead to develop its own energy, its own infrastructure, its own technological advancements. That shift toward responsibility altered the way the world saw it. It wasn't weakness anymore. It wasn't helplessness anymore. It was strength because it carried its own weight. Now think about yourself. The principle is exactly the same. If you avoid responsibility, you may be comfortable for a while. You may even fool yourself into thinking you're free, but people won't take you seriously. Why should they? If you can't even manage your own life, why should anyone trust you with greater things? You become invisible, unremarkable, forgettable. The weight you refuse to carry doesn't disappear. It simply crushes you in another form through wasted years, broken relationships, and the quiet misery of knowing you could have been more. When you accept responsibility, though, something extraordinary happens. People notice. The world notices. You rise in stature not because you asked for respect, not because you demanded recognition, but because you demonstrated competence through action. And competence, combined with responsibility, creates influence. That's the law of life. Too many people want influence without paying that price. They want to be respected without being responsible. They want to lead without first mastering themselves. But that's backward. The world doesn't work that way. No one respects a person who refuses responsibility. They might pity them, they might tolerate them, but they will not follow them. True influence begins with the willingness to bear the weight of responsibility, especially when it's heavy. And responsibility isn't just about doing what you're told. It's about voluntarily shouldering the burdens that others run from. It's about seeing what needs to be done and saying, I'll do it. It's about making sacrifices today so there can be strength tomorrow. Think about what that does. It transforms you. Suddenly, you're not just existing. You're building. You're protecting. You're creating order out of chaos. That gives your life meaning, and people are drawn to that. On a personal level, responsibility means looking at the mess in your own life and deciding you're going to clean it up, no matter how overwhelming it seems. It means taking ownership of your choices instead of blaming everyone else. It means committing yourself to something greater than pleasure or convenience. And in doing so, you begin to command respect, not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. When India stepped up, the global order had to pay attention. When you step up, your family, your colleagues, your community, they will have to pay attention. It may take time. It may be invisible at first. But over the long run, responsibility carves a path to influence like nothing else. Now, responsibility is frightening. Let's be honest about that. It feels heavy because it is heavy. It will stretch you beyond what you thought you could endure. It will demand sacrifice. It will expose your weaknesses. But it will also call forth your strength, because nothing brings out your hidden potential faster than responsibility. When people are depending on you, when the stakes are high, when you cannot afford to fail, that's when you discover what you're truly capable of. And here's the strange thing: responsibility is not just a burden, it's also a gift. It's the very thing that makes life meaningful. People think happiness is the goal, but happiness is fleeting. It comes and goes like the weather. Meaning, on the other hand, is enduring, and meaning comes from responsibility. From knowing you are carrying something important, that your actions matter, that people depend on you. That's what gives life depth. That's what keeps despair at bay. So many people today are lost, anxious, depressed, purposeless. And one of the main reasons is that they've been told to avoid responsibility, to prioritize comfort, to make life as easy as possible. But an easy life is not a meaningful life. It's an empty life. It leaves you hollow. The antidote to that emptiness is to take on responsibility more than you think you can bear, and then rise to meet it. That's how you build a life worth living. And remember, responsibility scales. It starts small. Clean your room. Show up to work on time. Tell the truth. Pay attention to the details. These small acts build a foundation. Then, as you prove yourself trustworthy in small things, greater responsibilities come. And as you take them on, your influence grows. This is how ordinary people become extraordinary, not by chasing power, but by embracing responsibility. It's the same with nations. A country that refuses responsibility becomes a liability to itself and to others. But a country that embraces it becomes a stabilizing force, a leader, a power. That's why India's rise matters. It didn't beg for respect. It earned it by taking responsibility for its energy future. And in doing so, it shifted the balance of power. Your life works the same way. Stop waiting for people to respect you. Stop waiting for opportunities to fall into your lap. They won't. Respect is earned. Opportunities are attracted. Influence is cultivated. And the only way to do that is through responsibility. So ask yourself, where are you avoiding responsibility? Where are you blaming others instead of taking ownership? Where are you shrinking back when you should be stepping forward? Because those are the places where your potential is being wasted. And those are the very places where your future influence will be born if you're willing to bear the weight. And don't think for a second that responsibility means losing yourself. Quite the opposite. Responsibility is how you find yourself. It's how you discover who you are and who you could become. Without it, you remain undefined, drifting, vulnerable. With it, you become solid, grounded, unshakable. So yes, it's heavy. Yes, it's demanding. But it's also the path to meaning, the path to respect, the path to influence. The world respects those who take responsibility. And when you do, you won't need to chase respect. It will come to you. That's the law. That's the way forward. Responsibility is the price of influence. And the reward is becoming who you were meant to be. Strength. That's what people respect. That's what commands attention. Not weakness, not excuses, not victimhood, strength. And I don't mean just physical strength, although that has its place. I mean strength of character, strength of competence, strength of will. Because in life, just like in the world of nations, no one listens to the weak. No one admires the weak. Weakness invites dismissal, even contempt. But strength that turns heads, that changes things. Look at the global stage. Why do some nations command respect while others are ignored? It isn't about begging for recognition. It's about power. It's about demonstrating clearly that you are not to be dismissed. India's revelation of its nuclear capacity shocked the world, not because the world had never heard India speak before. It had, but because suddenly there was undeniable strength behind those words. The message was no longer abstract. It had weight. Now think about your own life. How often do you wish people would respect you, listen to you, take you seriously? But here's the truth: people don't respect weakness. They might feel sorry for it, but they don't follow it. Respect is not given. It is earned. And it's earned through strength. What kind of strength? The strength to do what's difficult. The strength to stand firm when others collapse. The strength to speak truth when it's easier to lie. The strength to master your impulses instead of being mastered by them. That kind of strength makes people take notice because it's rare, because it's costly, because it proves that you're not at the mercy of circumstance. You've built yourself into someone who can bear the weight of the world. But let's be honest, a strength doesn't come cheap. You don't get strong by doing what's easy. You don't get strong by avoiding pain. Strength is forged in struggle. It's the product of facing challenges you'd rather avoid, of enduring difficulties you didn't ask for, of refusing to quit when quitting would have been the simplest option. That's how strength is built, one painful choice at a time. Think of a weightlifter. Every rep, every set, every drop of sweat is a confrontation with resistance. Without resistance, no muscle develops. Without weight, there is no strength. Life is the same. Without struggle, without responsibility, without hardship, you remain weak. And weakness doesn't earn respect. But there's more. Strength isn't just for you. It's for the people around you. Because life will bring storms. To you, to your family, to your community. And when those storms hit, people look for someone who won't collapse. Someone who can stand firm. Someone they can lean on. If you're weak, you'll be washed away. If you're strong, you'll become a pillar others depend on. And that, in turn, expands your influence, your role, your meaning. Now, many people confuse strength with aggression, with domination. But that's not strength. That's insecurity pretending to be power. Real strength is controlled, directed, disciplined. It doesn't lash out randomly. It doesn't need to prove itself every second. It's quiet, steady, unshakable. It carries itself with a kind of calm authority because it knows what it is. That's the kind of strength that commands respect. Weakness, by contrast, breeds resentment. If you're weak, you'll envy those who are strong. You'll resent those who succeed. You'll fall into bitterness, blaming others for your own failure to develop yourself. And the tragedy is, It's preventable. Because every person has the potential for strength, but most run from the very process that would build it. They chase comfort instead of discipline, pleasure instead of purpose, excuses instead of responsibility. And in doing so, they guarantee weakness. On the national stage, weakness is dangerous. A weak nation invites exploitation. It has no say in its own destiny. It must bow to stronger powers because it cannot defend itself. On the personal level, it's the same. If you're weak, life will exploit you. Other people will exploit you. You'll be tossed around by every difficulty, every temptation, every whim. But if you're strong, you can face those same pressures and not be broken. And strength isn't just about endurance, it's about competence. If you're competent, people listen. If you can solve problems, if you can bring order where there was chaos, if you can make things work when others fail, that's strength. That's influence. That's respect. It doesn't matter what excuses you offer. If you're not competent, you'll be ignored. If you are competent, you'll be sought after. That's why discipline, which we spoke about earlier, is so crucial. Discipline builds strength. Responsibility builds strength. The things we try to avoid are the very things that make us formidable. Every time you carry a burden, every time you deny yourself an indulgence for the sake of something higher, every time you face hardship instead of running away, you're building strength. And one day, that strength will shock people who underestimated you. And there's something else. Strength is attractive, not just physically, but spiritually, morally, intellectually. People are drawn to those who embody it because deep down, we all know life is hard. We all know storms are coming. And we want someone strong by our side when they do. Weakness repels, but strength inspires. So don't fall into the modern trap of glorifying weakness. Don't mistake victimhood for virtue. Weakness is not noble. It doesn't help you, and it doesn't help the people around you. What's noble is to cultivate strength, to become the kind of person who can bear suffering without collapsing, to take on responsibility willingly, to live with discipline, to rise above chaos. That is noble. That is respectable. And here's the irony: the stronger you become, the more compassionate you can be. Because only the strong can afford compassion. Only the strong can carry others without being crushed themselves. Weakness doesn't make you kind. It makes you resentful. Strength makes kindness possible because you're not consumed by your own fragility. So, what does this mean for you? It means you need to stop asking for respect and start building the strength that earns it. Stop waiting for people to take you seriously and give them no choice but to take you seriously. Stop hoping life will get easier and instead make yourself tougher. That's how you change the trajectory of your existence. And yes, it will hurt. It will cost you. But weakness costs far more. Weakness costs you your dignity, your respect, your influence, your meaning. Strength costs sweat, sacrifice, discomfort. But it rewards you with everything weakness cannot respect: stability, competence, influence, and the ability to weather life's storms. Remember, the world doesn't respect weakness, and neither should you. You are capable of far more strength than you realize if you're willing to walk the path of discipline, responsibility, and struggle. Don't waste that capacity. Don't bury it. Develop it. Reveal it. Let it shock the people who doubted you. Because in the end, it's strength that earns respect, and it's strength that will carry you through. Struggle. No one escapes it. Life guarantees it. The question is never whether you'll face difficulty, but what you'll do with it. Because struggle has two paths. It can break you, or it can build you. It can make you bitter, or it can make you stronger. And what separates the two is how you respond, whether you run from it, or whether you turn it into a strategy for growth. Look at nations. India didn't rise by avoiding its struggles. For decades, it battled shortages, corruption, instability, and dependence. It could have surrendered to those realities, accepted them as permanent, and remained stuck. But instead, it began to transform its struggles into strategies: energy shortages, develop nuclear capacity, economic challenges, invest in technology, education, infrastructure. Struggles weren't the end, they were the catalyst. That's the same choice each of you faces in your personal life. When you encounter hardship, and you will, you can choose to be crushed by it, or you can decide to extract meaning from it. Struggle is information. It's telling you something about yourself, about the world, about where you need to grow. The people who rise aren't the ones who avoid struggle. They're the ones who learn from it, who adapt, who build strategies to turn it into something useful. But most people don't do that. Most people see struggle as proof that life is unfair, that they're unlucky, that they should give up. They use it as an excuse, not as fuel. And the tragedy is, by doing that, they lose the very thing that could have shaped them into someone extraordinary, because struggle is the forge where potential is turned into reality. Without heat, there is no steel. Without resistance, there is no strength. Without struggle, there is no greatness. Now, this doesn't mean you should romanticize suffering. Pain for the sake of pain isn't noble. But when suffering comes, and it will, the noble thing is to transform it, to take that chaos and use it to create order, to turn that hardship into a strategy that moves you forward. That's not denial. That's courage. That's competence. That's competence. That's how you wrestle meaning out of chaos. Think about your own life. Think about the hardest thing you've been through. Maybe it was the loss of someone you loved. Maybe it was betrayal. Maybe it was failure, disappointment, humiliation. Whatever it was, you remember it because those moments shape you. The question is, how did it shape you? Did it leave you smaller, more resentful, more fearful? Or did it force you to grow, to toughen up, to become wiser? The difference is not in the struggle itself, it's in your response. That's why two people can face the same hardship and come out of it completely differently. One becomes broken, the other becomes unbreakable. And the only difference is that one chose to turn the struggle into a strategy. Take failure, for example. Most people treat failure as the end. They let it define them. They collapse under the shame of it. But failure isn't the end, it's data. It's information. It's a brutally honest teacher showing you what doesn't work so you can find what does. If you treat failure as a final judgment, you'll remain weak. If you treat it as a stepping stone, you'll grow stronger than you ever thought possible. Or take loss. Loss is brutal. It tears at your soul. But even in loss, there is something to be learned. It can teach you the fragility of life, the importance of gratitude, the urgency of living fully. It can make you compassionate toward others who suffer. It can clarify what really matters. None of that erases the pain, but it transforms it into meaning. And meaning is what allows you to endure. This is why struggle is not your enemy. It's your ally if you approach it properly. It's life's way of shaping you into someone capable of more than you imagined. It's how you discover hidden strengths, hidden skills, hidden resilience. Without it, you'd remain soft, complacent, untested. With it, you can become formidable. On the national level, India turned its struggles into strategies for survival and growth. On the personal level, you must do the same. Stop asking for an easy life. Start asking for the strength to handle a difficult one. Because that's where real fulfillment lies. The easy life looks appealing, but it leaves you hollow. The hard life, embraced fully, leaves you strong, respected, and meaningful. And let's be clear, this is not hypothetical. It's not just philosophy. It's practical. When you face a struggle, you can literally pause and ask, what can this teach me? How can I use this? What strategy can I build from this? That question transforms the whole experience. Suddenly, you're not a victim anymore. You're a student. You're a builder. You're turning chaos into order. That's power. Most of history's greatest figures weren't great because life was easy for them. They were great because life was difficult, and they refused to let it destroy them. They took suffering and used it to carve themselves into something remarkable. And that's why we remember them. Not because they avoided pain, but because they transformed it. And you can do the same. You might not control what happens to you, but you do control whether it breaks you or builds you. You control whether you use it to justify weakness or to cultivate strength. That choice is always yours. So the next time you're tempted to complain about struggle, pause. Look at it differently. See it as a challenge, as an opportunity, as a forge. Ask yourself how you can turn it into a strategy that takes you somewhere higher. Because the people who rise in life aren't the ones who had it easy. They're the ones who made their struggles work for them. And here's the beauty of it. Once you learn to do this, nothing can stop you. Because no matter what comes, failure, loss, disappointment, you can turn it into fuel. You can use it. That makes you unstoppable. That makes you dangerous in the best sense. Because the world can throw its worst at you, and you'll still find a way to grow. That's what real power looks like. Not the absence of struggle, but the ability to transform it. Not comfort, but resilience. Not avoidance, but adaptation. That's what makes individuals strong, and that's what makes nations strong. So don't curse your struggles. Don't waste them. Use them. Let them shape you. Let them forge you. Let them become the strategy that takes you from where you are to where you're capable of being. Because the truth is this: your struggles are not your weakness. They are the raw material of your strength, vision. That's where everything ultimately begins and ends. Without vision, you can have discipline, responsibility, even strength, but it all drifts without direction. Vision is what pulls everything together. It's what tells you why you're disciplining yourself, why you're carrying responsibility, why you're enduring struggle. Vision shapes destiny, both for nations and for individuals. Look at the history of nations. A country doesn't rise simply because it has resources or people or even knowledge. Those are raw materials. They only become powerful when they're directed by a vision. India had potential for decades. Millions of intelligent people, vast natural resources, rich culture. But potential without vision is wasted. What changed was a shift in direction, a decision to take control of its energy, its economy, its future. That vision turned raw potential into real influence. And once that vision crystallized, progress accelerated. That's how it shocked the world. Your life works in exactly the same way. You may have talent, you may have intelligence, you may even have discipline and responsibility. But if you don't have vision, if you don't know where you're aiming, then you'll scatter your energy in 1,000 directions. You'll work hard, but you won't get anywhere. You'll endure struggle, but you won't extract meaning from it. Vision is what gives shape to all the other virtues. And here's the thing: vision doesn't mean fantasy. It doesn't mean sitting around dreaming of being rich or famous or admired. That's not vision. That's wishful thinking. Real vision is practical. It's rooted in meaning. It's a clear picture of who you could become if you truly lived up to your potential. It's a destination you can aim at, even if it's far off, even if it feels impossible right now. Most people never form that kind of vision. They drift. They wake up each day responding to circumstances, doing what's urgent instead of what's important, living small because they've never stopped to ask, what am I aiming at? Who do I want to become? What kind of life do I want to build? Without that clarity, they get lost. And worse, they let others impose a vision on them. That's dangerous because if you don't shape your own destiny, someone else will. But when you form a vision, everything changes. Suddenly, your struggles make sense. Suddenly, your discipline has a purpose. Suddenly, your responsibility feels worth carrying because now you're not just enduring life, you're building towards something. That's what makes people unstoppable. They're not just reacting, they're pursuing. They're aiming at something higher, and that vision pulls them through the chaos. And vision doesn't have to be grand at first. You don't have to solve world problems or set out to change history. Start small. Maybe your vision is to become the kind of person your children can look up to. Maybe it's to master a skill, to build a business, to restore a broken relationship, to create stability where there's been disorder. The size doesn't matter at the beginning. What matters is direction. Once you have it, everything else aligns because life is like an arrow. Discipline is the bow. Responsibility is the string. Struggle is the tension. But vision is the target. Without a target, the bow and string are useless. Without a target, the tension has no release. But once you set your aim, the arrow flies straight. That's why vision is indispensable. And let's be clear, it takes courage to form a vision. Because as soon as you articulate it, you risk failure. If you aim at nothing, you can't miss. But the moment you declare, this is what I want to build, this is who I want to become, suddenly the possibility of falling short becomes real. That's frightening. But it's also necessary, because without that risk, you'll never rise. You'll never know how far you could go. People often say, well, what if I aim too high and fail? That's the wrong question. The real danger isn't aiming too high and failing. It's aiming too low and succeeding. Because then you waste your life on something trivial, something beneath your potential. Better to aim at something worthy and fall short than to waste your existence on mediocrity. That's what vision does. It elevates you. It forces you to stretch beyond who you are right now. It demands growth, sacrifice, and perseverance. And in that process, it transforms you. Because even if you don't reach the vision perfectly, you'll become far more than you would have otherwise. The aiming itself is transformative. and vision inspires others. When a person has clarity of direction, people feel it. They're drawn to it. Because most people are lost, wandering, aimless. When they encounter someone who knows where they're going, who lives with purpose, it wakes something up in them. They may not understand it, but they respect it, they admire it, and often they follow it. That's leadership. Leadership doesn't begin with commanding others. It begins with having a vision for your own life. On the global scale, India's vision for self-reliance in energy reshaped its place in the world. On the personal scale, your vision can reshape the destiny of your family, your community, maybe even more. Never underestimate how far the ripple of a single vision can spread. But you must guard it carefully, because vision can be corrupted. It can be hijacked by bitterness, by envy, by pride. A corrupt vision leads to destruction. History is filled with examples of leaders whose vision was poisoned, and the consequences were catastrophic. That's why vision must always be tied to responsibility and grounded in meaning. It must aim not just at power, but at the good, the highest good you can conceive. Only then will it endure. And vision is not static, it grows as you grow. The vision you form today may be smaller than the one you'll be capable of 10 years from now. That's fine. Start where you are. Aim at the highest thing you can imagine right now. Then as you grow, raise the aim, refine it, expand it. Let it stretch you further and further. That's the path to greatness. So let me ask you, what's your vision? Not your fantasy, not your wish, but your vision. Who do you want to be in 5 years, in 10 years? What kind of life do you want to build? What kind of legacy do you want to leave? Answering those questions is not optional. It's essential. Because if you don't answer them, life will answer them for you, and you won't like the result. Vision is destiny. What you aim at determines what you become. If you aim at nothing, you'll become nothing. If you aim at mediocrity, you'll become mediocre. If you aim at greatness, you may not hit it perfectly, but you'll rise higher than you ever imagined. That's the power of vision. So discipline yourself. Take responsibility, build strength, endure struggle, but above all, set your vision. Because without it, everything else scatters. With it, everything else falls into place. Don't drift, don't wander, don't live without aim. Choose your vision and pursue it with everything you have, because your destiny depends on the target you choose.